Time to shine, little mama. It's our time. Mwah. I love you so much. Oh, where do you want to go? You want to stay in my lappy? Hello, everyone. You want to stay here? What? What? I love you so much. I love you so much. I just need my daily dose of love. All right, Sabu. All right, here we go. Oh, how do I do this? All right. Oh my gosh, there's cat hair in my nose. Okay, we're loading it up. Huzzah!
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I just had a beautiful moment with Sabu. So,
That little meow.
oh, you're so perfect. Yes, my little chunky monkey. Yes. She's also, I just got like a bug bite on my forehead because I'm outside. I'm outside. We're just gonna roll with it. Everyone pretend you don't see the second head on my head. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm really crossing my fingers. I'm in a different room than last time. My internet has not been amazing. We'll see how it goes. Let's just hope for the best.
We'll roll with it like last time.
Yeah.
We'll do it.
My friend Phil, from Transition of Style, is going to be sort of waiting in the wings, and then at a certain point, I can pop out, and you can pop them in, and
Yes.
And chat to them, and I think they'd be a really valuable part of this conversation.
Absolutely. I would love to do that. So let's just start it right off. I'm going to do like a little intro. So welcome. Hey, Phil's here. So welcome everyone to these beautiful mental health awareness chats that Play Out and I have been facilitating. As you all know, or if you don't know, here's some good education. It is May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so we thought that a really fun way to not only bring awareness to mental health and to decrease the stigma that is associated with mental health, and just a fun way to be creative and mutually supportive of folks within the LGBTQ community, we decided to do this little mini web series, Instagram live series, whatever you want to call it. There are so many terms for what's happening with tech these days. I can't keep it straight. Nothing about me is straight, which could be why, maybe, who knows. But here we are, our second episode of our mental health awareness series. And today we are going to be talking about, our topic is the power of language. What's the deal with queer? And so before we dive in, I'm going to introduce myself, and I'm going to have my lovely guests introduce themselves as well. So my name is Lex Horwitz. I use they, them pronouns. I am a non-binary, transmasculine, LGBTQ plus educator, activist, and model based in Philly. And I am so grateful to be working and collaborating with Play Out. So please introduce yourself, my friend.
Yeah, so I'm Liz Leifer, and I am the Chief Design Officer and co-owner of Play Out Apparel, which is at Play Out NYC. And I am I'm a he, she, they, and I'm a transmasculine, non-binary person.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And do you have a preference? I haven't asked this yet. Do you have a preference for E versus Liz?
I don't. Either one works for me. I go by. I'm kind of trying to shift from Elizabeth to E as far as business stuff, because it's always been Elizabeth. But in my personal life, everybody calls me Liz. So
okay, cool. And if that changes at any point in time, just tell me, because identity is fluid. Our experiences are fluid. If something else feels better for you, you just let me know.
Yeah, it was like, this is a little bit off topic, but I did a like a guided like ayahuasca trip recently, and my came up a lot in it, and I was writing notes during it, and one of the most interesting notes that I looked at the following day was we will keep woman on the resume. And it was like this big moment of being like, of integrating everything and feeling like the fact that I presented as a woman for a long time and that I have two grown children that I created in my womb, and I no longer have that womb, like it's been removed and all this other stuff, that none of that, it's like a divine way of knowing that none of that is in conflict and none of it actually contradicts the other. It's all just one being that is me, and that's totally like the way it's supposed to be, which was pretty badass.
That is an incredible experience. That's like one of those just like earth shattering things start to make sense.
Yeah.
Things, the puzzle finally, you've had all the pieces, but the puzzle will finally fit. Wow. Thank you for sharing. That is not off topic at all. We're talking about mental health and our trans identities here. That is on topic.
Awesome. So
and also, if you see me a little bit distracted, Sabu is like, oh my gosh, she's like chasing her tail and eating flowers for my sister's graduation. So I'm like trying to stop both from happening at once. I am all yours. I am here for you. I'm just also making sure that this little nugget doesn't eat this flower. Oh my gosh. So, what would you like for us to address first? Because our topic is it's very encompassing of so many smaller questions about just language in general, right? Language is a social construct. We have created all these terms.
yeah.
About how is language used specifically within the queer community. Folks a lot of times have questions about labels, positive, negative, what are they for? So there's so many different ways we can go about this. How would you like to do it?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, yeah, I was thinking about that in preparation for this. I was thinking a lot about how, we touched last week on how, everything sort of has the power that we assign it, right? And that we, as humans, we sort of opt in to all the optics that are created by a social construct and by whatever culture we are raised in. And that so much of that is a presentation that we adopt, right? And it's not necessarily what we strongly identify with or that feels right to us or that is what we would assign ourselves. That's what the group consciousness sort of assigns to us. And it's just so true. I really was ruminating on that and thinking about how it's like it's something that we opt into over and over again, is accepting this structure and being like, yes, I will adopt this because you tell me to. And that whole thing about language, and it's about like hearing something derogatory and then being like, no, I'm going to take that back. And all these words that have had their moment of like being very negative for a derogatory term and then being reclaimed in, for the culture that they've been assigned to. I think that like queer is one of those words. When I was a kid, that was an incredibly derogatory term. Like that was literally like saying you're a piece of shit. Like if somebody said that you were queer, it was meant to be demeaning. That's how people utilize.
It was meant to be the deepest dig that folks would use, but it happens to be people's identity.
Yeah.
So what do we do about that, right? Oh my gosh,
yeah.
Sabby, please.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's a word that now is in a much different way. It took me a while actually to get on board with in myself, with not feeling it as a derogatory term. And now I totally identify as queer, and I'm just like, yeah, and I fucking say it all day, and I'm just like, yeah, it's awesome.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the truth, because I have a very different experience with the term queer, because for me, although yes, I had heard queer used as a put down, it wasn't necessarily the only time I had heard of LGBTQ folks. Mm-hmm. So if someone was like, or if I was reading like an old text in English and it was like, something is queer, and I'd be like, oh, what is that? Oh, it's meant to be like weird. And I was like, why? Like what? Like, so like that was like my original understanding of queer. Mm-hmm. But then for me, I didn't have the experience of either being called queer as a derogatory term or having it be a pretty much staple experience of my childhood growing up hearing that as a derogatory term. So for me, I was, this may not be like the correct language, but like I feel like it was easier for me to accept queer as a term because I didn't have the same history and potential traumas associated with queer that you may have had.
Yeah. I think that's true of a lot of people in your age group, which is why it was able to be reclaimed. I think that because there was this big movement, from my perception, of honestly of younger people utilizing that word and in a different manner and adopting it to a different movement and a different way of looking, that's what made it possible to shift it in the greater dynamic. You know, I remember distinctly being in junior high and had a huge crush on this girl, and my one of my best friends knew, and she was like, "Ooh, but I mean, you can't do that. Like, you don't want to be a queer." And I remember it like it was yesterday, and it was literally like free, and I was just like, "Yeah, no, I mean, no way, man. I can never do that." And I was just like, it's just so
Yeah.
interesting because, yeah, I mean, it just was one of those things where it was like a queer, and then my dad would talk about the old queers who were my mom's florist. Like, my mom would have party, like if she was ordering something for a party or whatever, it would be like she'd get it from her florists who were a gay couple, male couple. And my dad would be like, "Oh my God, I'm getting another bill from those queers." Like, it was just like a whole thing. And it's just so interesting because in us having this conversation about language and about terminology, all those memories came back to me, and I was just like, yeah, it really was just like, it's so cool to me that in the course of my lifetime, it was this just the most negative thing I could hear. And now if somebody has me like on a panel, I'm like, yeah, I identify as queer. It's just like
Yeah.
day, night and day.
Yeah. And that is such, like, as an outsider, because that's not my experience, like I see that as being such a beautiful experience because
Cool.
whereas, like, technically, yes, when I use queer, I am reclaiming the derogatory term and making it positive, making it political, making it not just an identity term that is used, but like having a purpose behind using it. Like, I purposely see myself using queer as it's taking a political stance. It's a form of resistance as someone who is LGBTQ. But
Yeah.
it takes on a very different like internal feeling and understanding for me because I haven't experienced like the consistent negative messaging of, oh, that's queer, from my father, from the society at large. And so that I just feel like that takes on almost an even more just like beautiful, affirming experience, like see that change and have that hope that we can keep having those changes, whether it's the language we use or the ways that we interact with each other, or just the way that even by reclaiming queer, we're having more conversations about the LGBTQ community with folks who are not LGBTQ. And so it's opening this dialogue, it's opening this conversation.
It is.
And
It
I
is.
think that's beautiful.
On the flip side, like, it's really cool and heartwarming for me to hear you say that you didn't have that experience is fucking mind blowing on a certain, because from my perspective, it's like, you know what I mean? I for decades, it was like, uh, there was no positive spin or version of being gay. Like, in the 70s and 80s, it really, especially in the midst of the AIDS epidemic, and it really just became, it's like it put even more negativity onto it, and it gave all these people like, see, this is God, God is going to kill and punish all these people for being gay, and it reinforced all the conservative messaging about that is just the worst thing you can possibly be. I'm just like, I mean,
Yeah.
I had conversations with, you know, extended family members where they would have sooner been okay with me being a fucking murderer than me being gay. And it's just mind blowing to me that I can even sit in 2020 with someone and have them say that to me is fucking awesome. Like, it's awesome.
One
It
good
makes
thing came out of
me feel
2020.
like some good shit happened, you know? It's not done. There's
Yes.
so much more to do, but it feels
Yes, that is so true.
yeah.
I'm just like,
It's
I'm
great.
thinking, it's interesting because although I didn't like I never saw, well, I'm not gonna say never because I maybe I did, I just repressed it, but like it's not like a staple of my experience hearing queer as a derogatory term itself. So like saying like, oh, you're not, like, oh, that's so queer, like cut it out, like in that terms, like I hadn't heard queer used in that way. But for me, growing up, because I went to, for folks that don't know, I went to a all girls school for 14 years, and in that space you could not speak queer. And so when my understanding of queer was from my school being a social death sentence, meaning you were going to be harassed, you're going to be bullied, you're going to be just demeaned. So for me, queer took on a meaning of I can't have this identity. This identity is going to harm me, because that's what the social space at, I just kept going. I hope you're okay with that. I just like assumed I could keep going. um and so going into that space where like queer is like, you can't, like, if you're queer, like you're not accepted, you're bullied, you're harassed. Perfect. Like all of these things was like associated with queer identity. So although I didn't hear queer as a derogatory term used to demean people, being queer was never something that seemed like it was an, I mean, identity was never safe for me. We'll have Liz come right on back on. We'll keep going. I got lots to say. And so coming to college and seeing queer for the first time in my life as this reclaimed political term of being so freaking proud of how non-normative we are, because who would want to be traditional? Boring. Those things. I just kept going. I'm gonna keep going. we will defeat this Wi-Fi problem. I know we will. We'll keep going. Cool. And so when I started to reclaim queer,
Keep going.
it was this beautiful kind of me realized messages from my school environment, from social media at large, that portrayed being queer as this awful thing, that why would anyone want to be this thing or choose to be this thing. And then it took me seeing queer in like the positive light of, no, like we're going to use queer because we're proud of being non-normative. We're proud of the fact that we are not traditional, the fact that we don't have to align ourselves in boxes with these gendered norms. And so that's why I love queer. I love queer now because I'm like, I don't want to be traditional. I'm not your vanilla like person. Like I am 100% me, and that isn't being dictated by anyone else. And so on top of the fact that I use queer as my term because of its political nature, this may be something that you relate to as well. So you let me know, is that I understand queer to be the most broad, general, comprehensive cloud of, you don't really know what I'm talking about when I say queer, and that's why I like it. And so like for me, as someone who is a non-binary transmasculine person, I understand my identity to not really align with saying that I'm gay, because gay is traditionally used for folks who are binary, who like other folks who align within their binary. And for me, I understood lesbian as being women who love women. Now, obviously, that is the traditional term. It is not what it necessarily means today. But so like gay, bi, lesbian, those terms felt too constricting, too, because you don't know what I mean when I say I'm queer. Being queer is for me to define, and I can choose to explain that to you, but I don't necessarily have to. So like as a non-binary person, queer just felt the most at home for me to say, like, yes, my sexuality is queer, my gender is queer, we're just queer. That's it. We're queer. Do you have a similar relationship as a non-binary person in like aligning yourself with queerness? Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, cool. So for me, like, queer becomes more of like a blanket term. I see it as something that,
I can
did
hear
I
you, but
freeze?
it did freeze. Let's see. I'm going to exit you. I'm going to exit you out and have you come back in. Is that okay?
Great.
Oh, wait. I see you. There you go. We're good. Okay, cool. I'm going to do that because it keeps reloading. We're doing this thing. We're doing this thing. Let's see. I'm going to remove it and I'm going to have you come back in. Hopefully that will work. Okay, here we go. All right, folks, stay tuned. Liz has some very important things to say, and I know you all want to hear it, so I'm going to hype them up while we wait for technology to be our friend. Here we go. All right. Here we go. We're doing this. Just enjoy me energizing myself. Yes. Okay. Can I?
I'm
Yes, I
sorry about
got you.
that.
Perfect. Speak your wisdom. It just gives us more
So,
suspense for the amazing things you have to say.
oh my God, the pressure. No, for me, the way that I interpret it, and this is just for me, is I see queer as more of the sort of umbrella that sort of everything that's non-normative ends up falling under. So for me, I feel like a comfort in utilizing that terminology, um, because you
Oh no, I lost your
much
audio.
like you, I find it to be somewhat limitless, and I don't like the.
It's
Oh
delayed, but I
no!
heard you. I heard the beautiful language of you
Can you
saying
hear
that.
me?
Yes, I can hear you. It came in a little,
Can you
sometimes
hear
it's
me?
coming in delayed.
Is
I can
this
hear
working
you.
at all?
What I heard,
Okay.
yep, we're making it
So
work.
yeah,
No, you're good.
sorry. We'll do um in identification and in figuring out all of the sort of technology now. There's way more, like, honestly, when I was young, it was literally like, are you gay? And then maybe next to that you're a lesbian, and there just was no name for you. Um I think, there's a lot of power in that. I think a lot of older people spent so much time trying to not be labeled that the way that they come to it is I have a lot of friends also that feel the way that I did for a while was it stressed us out to be like, oh, we need to subcategorize ourselves for online dating, and we need to figure out like what all these subsets are, and what are all of our acronyms, and all of this stuff was like, oh shit, like I don't know, man, I'm just like me. And it was really intimidating, and it freaked us out, and we used to kind of joke about it, just be like, I don't know what the fuck it means, like I gotta look this shit up now, before I can like this person on Tinder. And it was I mean, but one of those things where a lot of people spent so long just to not have people label them. Like, stop trying to put me in a box. Stop trying to figure me out. Stop trying to assign shit to me that I don't assign to. And so it's cool. To me, it's super cool that there is a whole world of people now that take power and take pleasure and calm in finding very specific nuances that they can use to just
Yeah.
describe themselves. Like,
Yes.
I think that, if you can find power in
It's a little
that,
delayed.
and that gives you a sense of peace and a sense of calm around who you feel like you really are and being understood by other people as like a way to communicate with other people, that's fucking awesome. Like, I think it's amazing.
Yes. Okay. So I heard everything you said, but it came in a little bit delayed, which is why I pointed to my headphones and I was just like, I'm listening. I got the wisdom. Um, and I, I love the language that you use
Okay.
about queer being limitless and how it's pretty much the opposite of being
but yeah,
boxed
that's
and being
that's
forced into labels
kind
or
of
being told that
my
it's derogatory. And so
for me personally,
queer,
I use queer, but I don't
ooh,
use a bunch
there's
of
so
any
much.
really too.
And so lovely words of wisdom from Liz. And you know what? I hadn't even thought about this. Hello, Sabu. Sabu's back up. About the fact that folks who are being forced into labels or who are being told that they have to be someone who they are not. And now with this new wave of information and labels and more language to understand identities, it's almost as if you're being thrown back into that vulnerable state, whether it was when you were growing up or in college or whatever it may be, where you are yet again being told that you have to choose a label, which can be very triggering. So like, I'm someone who did not necessarily feel the pressure from society or folks my age to like choose a label. But something that's
Mm-hmm.
somewhat similar, I would say, is that I have been forced or been told that I had to tell someone what my identity was and what that label is. And that to me
Mm-hmm.
was not only super invasive, uncomfortable, and something that I didn't want to do, but I didn't. Oh my gosh, Sabu, please, for the love of God. Oh my God, she's about to break through the screened-in porch. Whew, we're good. She like just jumped onto the. I'm like, no. Okay, we're back. We're good. We're safe. But so like for me, like I remember being on the squash team my first year when I had first come out as gay. At the time, I thought that I was a cisgender woman who was masculine and attracted to other women. And I distinctly remember, on top of the fact that I had some teammates on the men's team come up to me and laugh in my face because they claimed that it was a joke and that I couldn't actually be in love with my girlfriend. I had other people come up to me and force me to tell them what my sexuality was because, oh, like, but I mean, like, I've seen you with guys, so like, does that mean you're bi? Like, are you bi or are you just like straight up gay? And I'm like, one, I don't even know. Two, it's none of your goddamn business. And so I love what you were saying about how queer is kind of like it encompasses this limitless, this
Yeah.
non-normative nature without making folks feel like they have to necessarily like subcategory pigeonhole exactly where you are and what you want to be in the community. Because if you're queer, you're queer. And being queer is dope. I love being queer. And so thank you for sharing that wisdom. I loved it. I loved it. Yes. And so I can see your screen. It may still be a little bit delayed. But do you want to add anything else to our conversation on queer or the kind of almost shared experience of many LGBTQ folks about either the pressure that we feel in being put into these boxes or being told that we have to label ourselves, that like we have to know exactly who we are and what we want and what our desires are and how we want to get them, because not only is that not possible for any human being, but why force queer people
Yeah.
to try and pigeonhole themselves, to label themselves, to understand themselves, when the majority of the human population goes through life on what I like to call autopilot? They don't do self work. They don't think deeply about themselves. They don't necessarily try to grow and become better people. But that's something that I think is so beautiful about being queer. And this is not saying that every queer person is like this, because I know that it's not. But so many of the queer folks that I do know have so much, whether you want to call it wisdom or insight or just connection with themselves and with those around them, because we have had the experience where we have to get to know each other and ourselves more deeply and more intimately because of the fact that we are queer. And because when we're queer, we get to, one of the positives I will say about labels and language, myself to have that language that like, oh my God, that clicks. Oh my God, I just like spit a lot, but you know what? That's fine. It's a powerful, powerful thing I'm saying. All this live is coming out. We're good. But it's so powerful to also be connected to people who could share similar experiences or similar values, or who at the end of the day may just understand what I say when I'm like, I'm just sick and tired of explaining things to people. Because if I say that to a non-binary trans masculine person, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be like, oh, boo, I got you. But if I say that to a cis straight person, they're going to be like, come again? I'm going to be like, you know what? I don't have the energy to explain. I'm just going to go right back into my whole goodbye. Like, that is what the beauty of having these labels are. For me, is that I can find community, or I can have that aha moment. Oh my God, the pieces of the puzzle are connecting. My heart feels like it's aligned. I understand myself.
Yeah.
And so, like most things in life, labels, language aren't 100% fantastic, and they aren't 100% satanic. They are this beautiful mix of everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's really, I think it's important within the queer community to really watch and work on our judgment of other people. You know, there's a tendency, just as humans, we have a real tendency to want to really specifically align with certain things. And, you know, there is an uncertainty and feel uncomfortable to people to be in a space that's sort of more free form. But everybody needs to be allowed to have a version of whatever it is that they are experiencing. You know, that's the same way that somebody would want that other people to give them that space. You know, I feel like it's really important to make sure that as best we can, we're creating that space for other people. You know, people talk about a safe space, but I've seen queer people invite unsafe spaces for other queer people that, you know, because they want a specific interaction. And, you know, that isn't fair to anybody. I don't care if you're who you are. Nobody wants to be called out or singled out or othered, you know, but God forbid we other our own. Like I just, it's always shocking to me. And I feel like there's, you know, this should be a place of understanding and protection, and people standing up for each other, even if they don't totally understand where the other person is coming from. You don't need to understand. The point is that we're all fighting for the same right to be able to fucking feel that, whatever it is unique to us. Like that's the
Yes.
that's the bottom line.
Yes. Okay, you just said so many things that I'm just like, yes, say it again. Go announce it to the world, because it's true. There's a couple different things I want to touch on, but the first being that there is so much more that we have to work on within the queer community to support one another. And that just because we may share an identity or we may belong to the same community under this queer term, it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone is willing to give the human decency of respect to other people who live their lives on that spectrum. And so I definitely like call to action for the community is this idea that regardless of the identity, whether it's a religious identity, a gender identity, sexuality, whatever it is that you do not need to understand or have a history or comprehensive knowledge of someone's identity in order to respect them, period. I do not need to know everything about someone of a different religion to know that I respect them as a human being who is spiritual. I do not need to know everything about heterosexuality because it's boring to me, but I will still respect hets. Like, like the truth is like, I don't need to know these things, right? Like, I can absolutely seek the knowledge. I can absolutely self-educate myself. And I implore folks who do not share these identities to take it upon themselves to be a life learner, meaning that, like, even if you're done with high school or college or your master's or wherever you are, we can constantly learn things every single day. I learn something new every single day. And I want everyone else to also have that kind of energy, like that power within them to say, okay, well, I don't have to understand trans people to respect them. I don't have to understand queer people to respect them. Nonetheless, if you don't know much, I highly recommend you look into some things and you educate yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like, Phil, I hope your internet is working good, because I feel like this would be a good time to sort of hand off the baton to my amazing friend, Phil, and get their perspective in on this before we move to a different topic. But, so I'm going to pop out and maybe pop them in. Phil, can you send a request to come on, and then Lex will let you in there? Because I glean so much from Phil all the time. Like, the conversations that we have are so comprehensive and really interesting. But yeah, I think this is like the perfect time for you guys to chat.
Let's do it. I love it. Let's see.
In a bit.
Talk to you soon. All right, Phil, I'm getting ya. How do I do this? Da-da-da-da-da-da. Oh, nope, that's not it. Here we go. How do I... Oh, that is not... Oh, that is not that. Phil, if you happen to... There we go. Thank you, my gosh. I'm so challenged. Okay, we're back. We're doing it. Phil's coming in. I'm so excited. It's gonna look...
Presto! Magico! I'm here!
Yay!
Oh my God, I'm here!
Yes!
Lex!
Oh my God.
Wonderful to meet you! Oh my God, Lex!
Meet you.
I just want to hug you.
I just want to hug you.
I legit just want to hug you, Lex.
Oh, I literally almost like, oh my gosh. Hi, Phil.
Hello,
Oh my
love.
gosh,
How are
have
you?
Such a beautiful energy.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. And I was loving your energy just from watching this whole thing. And I was like, okay, that one is getting a massive hug when this is all over.
Yes.
Hugs are happening. And Liz already knows. Liz and I have talked. I'm going to call Liz E. I'm going to do E. We've talked about setting up a cone barrier where that love is going to take place between us, and people just need to step back. I'm like, yes. I need some room. I need some room. Back up, back up, back up, back up. We're going to do this together. Yes. We're doing it together. Yes.
Legit. Okay, I am a human who thrives off of physical touch, and
I know. Then how are you doing right now then?
Right? Oh my God. That's why
are you dying right now?
My cats are sick of me. I've been just like I love you so much. Like, I'm talking to them. They're like, help. Help. Like,
you know, no. There are like pets everywhere being like, did you lose your job? Did you lose your job? How am I going to eat? Did you lose your job? Like, pissed off at people. Be like, go back to work.
Yes.
This is too much. Yes. Go back to work.
Oh my God. That's
so they don't get the pandemic thing.
I have like a little savage. I don't know if you can see her. Hi, Bubby.
I saw her walking past. She's adorable.
She is.
And she tried to escape or something earlier. What happened there?
Oh my God. Well, the screened-in porch, there's like bees and bugs like flying around, and she's like, oh, I see something. And she's like, and I was like, oh my God, like, you literally can't do that. You
cannot do that. Sabby, don't do it. I saw the heart attack happening with you, and that's okay. As long as she's okay. As long as she's okay.
No, you good, little bubber? Oh my God, her little tongue's sticking out, and she has sparkles on her. What's happening?
She okay? She waits till live happens. She's like, I'm going to have all the problems right now, okay? While you're live, I'm going to have all the problems.
Oh my Lord. You're so... Well, it is such... So for folks that don't know, this is a pleasure of mine to finally be talking face-to-face with Phil.
Thank you so much.
Phil, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself with your name, pronouns, and then any identity terms that you would like to share with us.
I love it. Okay, so I am Phil. I use they, them pronouns. She, her, fine. Every once in a while, it's fine too. I do not like ladies. Don't ever use ladies. Ever, ever, ever. That's like never, ever allowed. Like it will literally make me wretched. So let's not do that. And I am the host of a podcast called Transition of Style, which is a podcast that talks about the intersection of personal style and gender identity and how those two things interact. So, Lex, you and I will be talking after this.
Oh, we got that. Yes, we will be talking some more.
Because I need somebody on that podcast, and I'm like, it needs to be this Lex. Get on.
I got you.
I need you to be there. I need you to be there. It's going to be wonderful. I am so thrilled to be here talking to you about this. Thank you so much for having me on here.
Thank you so much for being on here with us. And so I would love to pick your brain because I've heard, Liz and everyone talks so highly of you, and I love to learn new things every day. So you're about to be my educator.
I'll try.
So tell me, what is your relationship with the word queer?
So, very good question. So I'm closer to age range with Liz, and I would say that I almost have the same sort of experience with it, except for the fact that when in my your cat is amazing. Yep. Your cat's like, I don't care about your fucking life. I'm gonna walk on live. I'm gonna walk the screen and I'm gonna keep talking. There you go. Okay,
one of my scholars, I used to work special ed. I'm still connected with them to make sure like they're all safe and everything during COVID. He always ends up calling me during one of my lives. So that's what just happened. So it's probably going to happen again. I will tell him I'll call him later and I'll come right back.
We're going to keep it moving. It's all good. We're going to keep it moving. I can do this. I'm all right. I'm all right. So I have almost a similar relationship. I feel like I have heard queer used as a slur, although back where I come from, it was people saying homo or gay. They didn't necessarily use queer. However, I do know that for some people of a certain age range, of course, the term queer had been in their history weaponized. It had been used in a very derogatory way, and not only was it used in a derogatory way, sometimes it was followed with actual violence. So when we think about the term queer, for certain people, it is wonderful that we can reclaim it, but for some people, it may be a harder road to reclaiming it, or they can't reclaim it at all because it is actually triggering of memories of violence and of actual attack, physical attack. So it's pretty sad to think that that's the way some people view it, but you have to understand that for them, it's actually been weaponized and used in a way that once it's heard, you know how it is when you are in a formidable age and something happens, you can be triggered by something many years later because it reminds you, it takes you right back there. So I don't have that relationship with queer in particular. I don't have that relationship with any of the gay slurs I've heard. I guess maybe because I didn't hear them as much, but I do understand why some people are just like, it's so triggering for them. But I love the term queer. I do love the term queer because when you think about identities now and you start thinking about folks that are gender nonconforming, non-binary, trans, like I feel like queer really gives them this room to breathe. And I think we need room to breathe in our freaking community. Right? Come on. Am I saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Room to breathe. That.
Right.
Yes.
And you guys were talking earlier about like,
yes too. Yes,
Sabu. It's just like walking past. It's like a cat drive-by. It's like, whatever. It's going to drive on by.
Whenever she approves, she walks right past.
I love that. She's adorable. She's so cute. Oh, you are so cute. Like a little patchworker yumminess. Oh, she is so cute. No. Ooh, what's going on? She loves you. Oh my God. I love that.
She's so weird. Sometimes she'll slap me and then she'll just kiss. Like, do you see that? She like slapped me and then she kissed me.
I don't know whether to hate you or love you, but I think I love you. I saw that. I was like,
I took her away from the flowers that she wanted like, to eat. And then she was like, and I was like, what?
That was really funny. Like, there was a bunch of emotions there. That was really funny. I
You must
love
be a
that
trans
cat.
cat because only trans people can filter through emotions and triggers like that.
She's amazing. I fucking love her. She's incredible. She needs her own life. I'm sorry. She needs to go on live her own. She's amazing.
She's gonna throw me out of business if I let her go.
I think you're right. You better be careful. That cat's gonna throw you out of business. She's like, well, you're not working now. So someone's gotta work around here.
Exactly.
Someone's gotta do a job.
I'll take over. We're fine.
I'll take it over. Fuck you.
But
wait,
that's so
but I want to say
true.
one thing I want to say. You guys were talking about labels and boxes and how, the idea of somebody coming to you and be like, well, what are you? Like, are you this, that, and the other thing? I think the reason why labels and boxes especially are very damaging is because when someone tries to put you in a label or box, they're not putting, oh my God,
She agrees.
They're not putting you in your label or box. They're putting you in theirs, right?
Yeah.
And guess what? You don't get to define what I look like, what I identify with, who I sleep with, what I like. I could be literally like gender queer one day and 100% femme the next day, and you don't get to say it. It is not your right to say what I am at any given time. And if it changes because I decided it changes. There is no right for you to tell me what that should look like. So fuck your fucking labels. Fuck labels.
Yes.
Fuck your labels. Like, you don't get to put a label on me. Are you paying my bills? What is this?
Exactly.
What is this?
Exactly.
It's not cool.
That is such, oh my gosh, my contact is like bugging out. My contact like wants to like fly into the camera at you to be closer to you.
Okay, all right, I want it. Okay. I'm grabbing. Catch your hands. You said catch your hands. I'm going to catch it.
You're gonna see me be like, what is happening?
I'm going to catch your contact. Amazing.
But that is such a beautiful and clear way of understanding it, that labels themselves are not inherently bad. They aren't inherently limiting or conforming or any of those things.
Right.
But
If they're
it's
your
what
own.
people do to the labels that
Exactly.
makes them damaging.
Exactly. And it's also, it's labels. If someone decides they need to label someone, it's like they're trying to put you in a box so they can understand what it's like. So guess what? Here's what I need you to do. I need you to come outside your box and understand it in a new framework. You're going to learn something today. Okay? I understand this doesn't work for you, but you're going to learn something today. This is how I choose to identify. If this does not seem familiar to you, then learn something.
Yeah.
Learn something. Here you go. Learn something. Is it bad to learn? It's never bad to learn. Like, learn something, for God's sakes. I'm not about it. You see, right? You see I'm not the one, right? I'm like, I am not about it.
I am just like living for every word coming out of your body. Like,
just can't handle it. I just hate when people are like told who they should be, who they have to be. Be this so it makes sense to me. It's not my job to make sense to you. Exactly right. Like, learn something. Exactly. Come outside of your like narrow thinking and learn something. It is not my job to be what you need me to be to make sense. Like, that's not how this world's gonna work. Get it together. Oh my God, don't get me started. I can get on this for a while. Sometimes I had to take myself down. Thanks, E. I had to preach a little bit. Because I'm like, take it down. Sometimes I have to like get the crystals out and take it down. Get the amethyst out and really hold on to it and take it down. Because I can go on. I can go on a little bit of a rant.
So can I, which is why I feel like it's so refreshing, and like I just like feel like I just get like hit by like this wave of fresh air when I talk with someone who could like who just like pulled what I was feeling out of my brain. It's like it just feels so good, especially because I feel it is very difficult for me to like vibe with or be on the same energy level with people, which part of it could definitely be because of trauma that I've experienced in relationships. Other things could just be because sometimes people are shitty people, whatever it may be, or the fact that the majority of the world doesn't really take it upon themselves to learn about our identities or to respect us, because they don't even need to learn about us to respect us.
That's right.
So I am just feeling everything you're saying and here for the rants.
I got to do the rants because I just cannot stand by while people are being told who they should be for someone else's comfort. Like, I'm just not interested in it. Like, I don't care about your comfort. Like, you're saying to me now I have to shrink myself to make you comfortable. Like, fuck that. Like, let's be honest. Like, who the fuck's doing that shit?
Well, I'm about to inflate myself. I'm about to be bigger so that you have no idea what's happening.
There you go. Right. So then you have to learn. So guess what? Now you have to learn something today. Good for you. Yes. Learning is good. Okay? Learning is great. Learn something. Like, who gives a fuck? Like, get over yourself and learn something. We don't all identify the same way. We have different labels. We have different identities. We love who we choose to love. We live alternative lifestyles. We call alternative lifestyles, but they're just lifestyles for us. Like, let's just not get into this bullshit of like boxing people in. You have no right to box someone in their life. Yeah. You know, it's really not cool. Like, so I can get really ranty. It can go bad.
Should.
Oh, I can get ranty.
And I can get ranty. And the truth is that it's not just cis straight people who are boxing queer people into boxes.
Oh my God, it's so true.
Right? Like that's what Liz was saying, right? That this whole idea that I'm not even gonna try and claim that incredible thing that they said. That is all them. It's true. It's like, of course we have folks who are outside of the queer community who identify as cisgender and / or heterosexual, who for their own comfort or their own mental safety or whatever they want to call it, say that like they want to put us in these boxes, right? That experience that I had when I was on the squash team, being forced by my teammates to choose a label to make me feel comfortable. Story.
I was like, terrible. Oh my God.
Yeah. But then on top of that, I have queer people who unfortunately also tell me that like I can't exist because being non-binary isn't real.
I know that. And it's not, you're right. It's not just within outside of our community, it's within. And this is the thing for me sometimes that like literally blows my mind. I'm like, so let me get this straight. You're LGBTQ, you're in that umbrella somewhere. You understand what it's like to be somehow criticized or put down or even attacked for who you choose to love, how you choose to identify. And now you're going to now go within your community and take that same hatred and that same toxic bullshit and bring it in. Really? Are you doing that? Are you really doing that? Are you fucking kidding me?
I literally do not. It is, I cannot comprehend it. And the worst part for me is that, yes, like having queer folk demean my identity absolutely sucks. But the thing that surprised me and honestly hurt me the most were the trans men who decided to take it upon themselves to tell me that being non-binary was a mental illness, a bunch of other negative things, death threats. Like that came straight from...
Did that really happen? Yes. Are you serious? Are you kidding?
Trans men. Yeah.
Oh my God. I cannot believe it. I just can't. I'm like, I don't understand that. Like, I really need to understand that a little more because I'm just like, let's talk about your history and then explain to me where this all went wrong. Because like literally you just went off the rails. What happened here?
Yeah.
How did you go off the fucking rails?
Yes. Because it was so, and I know like exactly, like I had like this one very specific instance happen where I experienced just a flood of cis folks, het folks, like queer cis folks, queer trans folks, binary trans men come flood my page to tell me all of these negative, awful things about my identity.
Oh my God. So I just don't get it. Cause it's just like, so had they themselves not experienced that kind of hatred? Like if you have experienced the hatred and if you had really taken that in, can you really turn around now and do this to someone else? I just don't understand. Like I have to be honest with you. I cannot understand that. That is something I will probably spend the rest of my days having to sit down and just I just need to know. I need to understand. Like, how could you have this kind of hatred to someone within the community? I just don't get it. I cannot.
Interestingly enough, I decided to take this extremely traumatic experience that I had while I was in college and turn it into my senior thesis, which I did a research on if binary trans people have different perceptions of gender identity than non-binary trans people. And my results were significant, and they do.
You killed it. You killed it. You killed it. You killed that shit. So you turned that into a positive experience. That's amazing.
All about, like, I never let any experience leave itself as a solely negative imprint in my mind.
What an incredible person you are then. Because honestly, you should never have gone down. None of that should ever have gone down. It's not okay. I just, kudos to you for turning it around. Kudos to you. And honestly, if you're listening to this live and you're somebody like this, you got to ask yourself some questions. You got some questions to ask yourself.
Yeah.
Seriously, ask yourself some questions. I don't get it. I'm actually second by it. I can't get it.
Yeah, I totally feel that. And we only have a few minutes left, and I don't want us to be cut off.
Oh my God, I gotta get out because I gotta get Liz to come back.
But before you go, I think that I've gotten so many questions about like, what has your support been like from like the queer community at large, or specifically trans people, or even let's break apart this difference between binary trans people and gender fluid or non-binary trans people, and support and understandings of community. And I think that it is a much longer and very important conversation to have. Yeah. So I think we may have just found our episode 3 topic.
I'm tuning into that shit. Yes. That's incredible. That is incredible. That's a great topic to have. And I cannot wait. I'm so tuning in. You are so wonderful.
Thank you, Phil.
You're absolutely adorable. I'm in love right now. You're amazing.
Oh, so much love for you, Phil. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your wisdom and your energy and just your presence. We love Phil, everyone. We love Phil.
Yeah, I love you guys. I will tune in. I'm going to go and let Liz come back in, all right?
Let's do it.
All right, my friend. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye, Sammy.
Yes. So, everyone, we are just getting to the end of our fantastic episode 2 of our mental health awareness chats. The topic of this episode today was the power of language and what's the deal with queer. And as you can see, we have touched on so many different topics, and there is so much more that needs to be said. So remember, we are going to do episode 3, and Liz is about to pop back on for our farewell. There we go. So Liz, I was just saying, I think we found our episode 3 topic for next week. Yes. Yeah. And before we sign off, because we need to sign off in like 30 seconds so we don't lose our live, are there any last things that you would like to say for our audience?
No, I want to say thanks again. This was super awesome. I'm so thankful to Phil for joining us. And yeah, I mean, be kind to each other, especially in our community. Let's make an effort to, everybody just make space for each other to just be.
Yes. Preach. And remember, you do not need to understand someone to respect them. Respect.
100%.
Respect everyone, because you don't know what your smile on the street or whatever it may be, your comment on their Instagram post, whatever it is, can impact them. And you want to have a positive impact on people's lives.
Come at it with love.
Exactly. With love. Thank you for joining us, Liz. And I will see you soon. Everyone make sure to check my story afterwards if you didn't catch the whole conversation. It was such a wonderful conversation. Thank you for sharing yourself with us, Liz, and we will see you soon.
All right. Good to see you.
Bye.